Alright, how y'all doing? Are you ready for another dose of whatever this is? Because apparently I'm not, because I've spent ages trying to just sit down and dump out my thoughts. Hours and hours and hours, in fact, but it's just not happened. You know, you mull something over in your mind a little bit. The first time you think about it, it's pretty solid. Second time it becomes a thing, you're kind of refining it. Third time you just table flip and you just roll with it. Wait, hang on. So you've been trying to do this for hours? Yes. But then, by the time I got everything else done that I wanted to do today, my children came home from their grandparents. And then after that, the sun went away, and there's this crazy thing with cameras. They need light to capture images. No light, no outside video unless I wanted to cut around lighting equipment, and no. No. So everything is just really, really jumbled, really disconnected. I just started to think, well, what do I want to talk about? And then I thought about it, actually. A friend of mine asked me to do a video about this, wherever the camera is there-ish. Okay, whatever. This is an iPhone 13 mini, and he wanted me to compare this to, like, photo and video to this, which is a Google Pixel 4a 5G. And I'm not going to do that because, frankly, I think it's a very stupid thing to do. It's not worth doing. I will give an opinion on this. This is actually the first thing that I'm ever going to film on the iPhone 13, and by film I mean put it into full auto mode and whap the button. But so why won't you compare the two? You know, why is it stupid? Are you not going to do it because, you know, you think the Pixel's going to smash the iPhone, or you think the iPhone's going to smash the Pixel? No, I don't. I'm platform neutral. To be completely honest with you, I will use anything that works for whatever I need. I don't mind using Windows, Mac, or Linux. I've used iPhones in the past. I've used Android in the past. I've used Windows Mobile in the past. You know, Nokia, Symbian, whatever. I've used all sorts of fluff. Just depends on the groove that I'm in at the time. But my friend was surprised because I haven't used an iPhone since the iPhone 4S, which was 10 plus years ago, maybe something like that. I haven't actually used an Apple account since about 2015. So still quite some time ago. I stopped using Apple products around the time that Apple went to the big mountains. They were big cats and then big mountains, and I understand that for a lot of the stuff that I say in this video, there are going to be people who are too young to know what I'm talking about. Great, because you've got it made. Yeah, they started calling their operating systems Tiger, you know, Leopard, Snow Leopard, whatever, big cats, you know. And then they went from those to mountains. I think they're mountains or national parks or something like that. And when they did that, they changed some stuff in the operating system that made a bunch of the software that I use not work. And so that was one of the final straws for me saying, why am I using a platform for software when I should just find a piece of software that runs on all platforms, and then I can just shift around as and when I please. And so that's kind of what I did. And with the iPhone, same kind of groove. I'm also not a fan of everything kind of being soldered to the board. So the RAM is soldered into to the motherboard, your hard drive, your storage is soldered to the board, and I am not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of things that aren't really user serviceable. However, it's now come to the point where everyone is doing the same thing, whether it be to cut costs or to make things more stylish and slim or whatever. I don't like it. So it's either you have to take the thing with the thing in it you don't like, or you don't have anything at all. So and then my two sons got iPads for Christmas. And I made a bit of a boo-boo over the Christmas period. My in-laws bought them iPads, and during setting them up, they are too young to have an adult Apple account. And wow, I'm going off on a tangent, but just bear with me because I've got a film recommendation in a minute, right? Which does tie into all of this. They're too young to have Apple accounts, and so they have to have child accounts. And a child account has to be tied to a grown-up account, an adult account, a full account. And everyone else was busy. And so I thought, well, I've got an Apple account. I will use mine. I will use my Apple account to help them create children's accounts, and groovy. And then, even though I don't have a functioning iDevice at the moment, I imagine that Apple are like Microsoft and other platforms where if a child account requests access to something, you will receive an email, because I can still access the web side of an Apple account. And no, if you don't have an Apple device, a functioning Apple device, you do not get the parental control notifications at all. And in fact, most of the settings for the accounts are kind of tied to an iDevice or an Apple device. So I still have that iPhone 4S somewhere, probably with no battery in it, probably massively out of date, guaranteed to be massively out of date, and I have no idea where that dodgy, was it the 30-pin connector is to charge the thing? Oh, those were the days. Apple and their cables, which they're still doing, but so I had to get an iPhone. And then that's, again, as I say, where my friend got the groove to ask, what do I think to the iPhone cameras and stuff. Now, what I'm going to do over the coming weeks is basically kind of go into a groove about, in a really super simplified way, like, don't chase gear. Don't chase gear. Don't hold back until you get gear, because it's stupid. Film recommendation: Side by Side, narrated by or produced by and kind of, I guess, starring Keanu Reeves. And it's a film documentary about film, cinema, celluloid film, like physical, tangible, touchy, bendy, choppy film. And the evolution of it and cinema through to the digital age, and the way that everything has changed from not only the way we film, but the way that we consume. Because we still say that we are filming something, even though there is no film involved here at all. This is purely digital, a digital sensor recording to a solid state drive or some form of solid state memory. There's no film here. But the film itself, the documentary itself, is actually really neat, because it's a nice way to say, don't chase gear. Just don't. I will go through some basics over the next couple of weeks in kind of a, we're hanging out in a coffee shop or sat at a bar kind of groove, where I'm trying to explain something to you and I'll be drawing it on like a napkin kind of thing. Nothing fancy, just trying to get the bare bones basics of how you can get a better understanding of why you shouldn't chase gear. And even if, like, you only have a webcam, you should go out and do something. You should, like, if you've only got like a web camera on your laptop, film something, make something, take a photo with your web camera. Or if you've only got a phone, even if it's like it's a Motorola G30. If you've only got one of these, like, go and take some pictures with one of those, a Pixel, shoot some video, and you'll look at it and go, but I'm not getting the results that I want. I'll give you some hints as to why that may be, and how you can work your way around doing stuff. Because I've been around this world for a long time. I'm an old man, and I assure you that if all you do is chase gear, you will never get anything done. I can't film anything until the Panasonic GH5, until I get a Panasonic GH5 or a Sony A7 Mark 5. Is that what we're on now? I don't know. One of the bigger consumery cameras, or like you go for like I don't know, I want a red whatever, or a Sony big cinema style camera. If you're only going to wait until those come about, you'll never get anything done. And realistically, if that's your logic, that you can't do it until you get those pieces of kit, how exactly did we film things before? Because you generally speaking, if you know what you're doing, you have more power there, web cameras, than people had 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Think about it, back in the 60s. They didn't have anything near like what we carry around in our pockets. Like I say, I've been around for a long old time. They didn't have Panasonic GH5s when they filmed The Matrix. They didn't have Sony A7s when they filmed that film that people like, that I've just had a mind fart. I told you, very broken. So they had to have something. There are many things we base quality on, and realistically it's all bunk. That film tells you that. The documentary I mentioned tells you that we started on film, and this was the snobby high end, and if you were to record on tape, that was generally considered crap. And then when you got your first proper full digitals, that was considered crap too. And then it kind of progressed, and now it rivals film. But the freedom that people got was amazing. Like going from this big hulking camera that you'd have to have mounted on your shoulder to like a little, handy cam kind of thing. And then to the phone. Amazing. Absolutely. This records, from what I can tell, far better than what I had when I was younger. And yet I see all these younger folks chasing gear. I do it. I will admit it. I do it. I mean, I have access to any number of cameras, and I still produce shite. Okay. What about, here you go, Panasonic GH5. Fuji XT1. Panasonic, I forget what this is. Here's one. Canon 60D. And then any of the phones that I've picked up. Also, by the way, just a note, this is raw audio and video from the iPhone. I could have plugged in a microphone like, I don't know, this one. Or this one. Or, hang on, oh dear. This one. Or there's one over there. Oh, blimey, I'm now covered in cameras. But just you don't need it. I've collected all this stuff over years and years and years and years, and you don't need it. When I started, I mean, I remember I was a wee lad given like a little kiddie camera with actual film in it, and you'd snap your pictures, and it would all be automatic, and you'd roll on to the next shot, and you take your picture, and then oh hey, look, there's a rock, and there's a tree, and there's some dog poop, and there's me mum and me nan, or whatever, and then you'd take it to, we took our stuff to the chemist, and that would be developed, and then you'd realise like a nuggie that you'd had your finger in front of the lens like the entire time, and every shot was bunk. I remember running around with my uncle's camcorder, just filming random stuff, and that would get binned off onto a VHS tape. Like that was, I think that was full auto. I don't remember. It was a long old time ago. I was only a wee spud. I remember DV cameras, my first set of DV cameras where you had to record onto DV tapes, and oh man, copy times, you're crazy. Oh, it's terrible having to work with 4K or 1080p or whatever, because it takes up so much space and it takes so long to move it over to my computer. Are you kidding me? If I recorded for an hour on a DV tape, do you know how long that took to get that off the DV tape? An hour. It was real-time transfer, man. You had to plug that into your computer if you were going to edit it digitally, and you had to go boom, hit play, hit capture, and it took as long as it took. If you had multiple tapes, you could be sat there for hours getting that stuff put onto your computer. I remember like phones when they first started to have cameras on them, you know, that like, they were terrible. 0.6 megapixels, you know, like, or less, 0.3 megapixels. Was it 0.3 megapixels one of the earlier ones I had? Like, yeah, like terrible, like resolution wise. If you consider quality as resolution, it isn't. Those video was shot at like 320 by 240 or less. Really rinky-dink small. 240? Yeah, mate. Photographs might have been, 640 by 480. 480? Yeah, mate. Sub HD ready. Sub 720p. Like, but then back then it wasn't that big of a deal, because your screen might have been this hulking great thing you needed to be muscle bound to lift, but it was only like maybe, again, 640 by 480, 800 by 600, like pixels. So even though they were really rinky-dink tiny files, they were huge on that screen. They'd still take up like half of your screen. So they were good for the time, but now we would completely dump all over that stuff because it's not worth it, mate. It's not high res enough. It's not, the aperture and stuff ain't good enough, mate. But I'm telling you now, man, if I was out in boondocks, middle of nowhere, without a camera, without a phone or whatever, and I ran up to some random geezer in the street, like, and I said, look, hey, yo, can I borrow something to take a picture with? You know, be it like I've got my Razor flip phone. It's like, dude, cool. I've been around long enough that like I could take that and bam, capture that image. It doesn't matter the resolution. It doesn't matter about the blurry background or anything like that, which frankly I think is overused and looks shite a lot of the time. As long as you've captured that moment, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If you've got it, use it. Because if you can't focus on the quality of the camera, you might start focusing on the quality of the other bits. Your delivery to camera, lighting, framing things, sound. Sound is incredibly important, and I'll show that in another video too, that it doesn't matter if you've got like 4K, 8K, whatever K, if all you can hear is like construction equipment in the background, you're not going to watch it. But if someone hands you a 240p video but with crystal clear audio, you're going to stay tuned into that one. It might not be as visually stunning, but you can hear it. I understand as well, criticism is welcome. This isn't very well lit, the audio isn't very good, but that's the point. That is the point. So let's just go through some bits that just, the quality of this, the iPhone. I think, from what I can see so far, it's adequate. This is the normal camera mode. It has another mode that does this kind of cinematic thing where it does a fake shallow depth of field thing. Shallow depth of field, a blurry background, bokeh, other words you hear for it. Basically, focuses wherever you want the focus to be, and then everything beyond that point kind of falls off out of focus into like a blur. That's entirely artificial, I imagine, because I don't think a sensor quite this big, like tiny, is capable of producing really smooth depth of field, especially not, I'm using the front facing camera right now. Maybe if I was using the back, the rear camera, slightly bigger sensor, that'd probably be slightly better, but we're not. So it uses software to kind of say this is where it wants to be, and then it tries to find an edge, and then it will blur the rest of it. Cameras have been doing this for a while now, like phone cameras, to try and simulate proper portraiture from a bigger camera. It doesn't often work. I had long wavy hair up until very recently, and like what it would do is it would try and approximate where there was an edge, and then just it would blur out huge chunks of my hair or something like that when I was testing it. As an example, okay, so here's an edge, and what it would do is it would go along here, and it would say, here you go, edge, and then this stuff here, it would try and like figure out, like, does it halo around that? So you get this weird kind of glowy halo-y thing where it's like trying to stitch and figure out where the actual physical edge is, or does it just blur the whole thing out? So you just get this blur here, and then they're good telltale ways of figuring out if someone's using a trick to have a shallow depth of field. Frankly, again, not necessary. A lot of times it kind of ruins the video because some people really do focus on that shallow depth of field more than they do anything else. The way that generally works is, so the reason why a small sensor doesn't really do it, let's say that's your sensor size. The bigger the sensor, the easier it is to blow your background out of focus. Okay, the other contributing factor is focal length, the zoom of the lens, we'll say. And like I said, this is like pub styly stuff here. And what was it? Sensor size, the thingy, the focal length of the lens, and the aperture of the lens, which is the f-stop. The smaller your sensor, so if this is like f4 on full frame, this is your focus area. So then turn it sideways, and if I move outside of the front range of this hand, I'm out of focus. If I move back here, I'm out of focus. Okay, as the sensor gets smaller, that area gets bigger. So f4 on a smaller sensor goes from here to like there. So you've got far more area to play with. The bigger the sensor, the bigger, f4 gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And frankly, there comes a time when it becomes really, really difficult to nail focus the lower that f-stop. Not necessarily important unless it's a look that you're going for, but this is a really small sensor, so anything that it's realistically doing is you have to either be really close to the lens, or it has to do it in software. It does look good when it works, but we're not using it here. But it's cool. Now I'm also like looking in, I haven't looked at this on the screen, on a big screen, because that brings me to another thing: noise, image noise, graininess, pixelation, whatever you want to call it. I'm giving this a fair whack at the moment, but we'll turn off some lights just to show you what I mean. Okay, so we're just being lit by my monitor right now. A terrible thing to do. Light your camera first, or light your image first before you faff around with anything else. Right, you will see now that there is kind of flickering going on around the darker areas of my head, and around here there's noise like everywhere, like flickery bits all over the place. Right? What that is the camera will be turning down the shutter speed, making it slower, and then upping the sensor sensitivity, which is your ISO. ISO has been a thing since the film days, or was it ASA back then? I don't remember, but basically it's the sensitivity of the camera, the film to light, the stock to light. And basically the more sensitive it is, the more noise is there. Now, even if you have a super high-end pro big boy camera, there will always be noise, which is why I mentioned that side-by-side documentary. It shows you film throughout the decades, and in near enough every case there is some kind of noise. You will never, ever, ever get a perfectly clean image. You just won't, unless you do some magic software jiggery pokery to get it. It's just not going to happen. Please stop freaking out about image noise. It's not important. It doesn't matter. If you have to bump your sensitivity up, do it. You know, it's not important. That's another one of my kind of gripes along with the shallow depth of field thing. It's not important. Cinematographers have had noisy images for centuries, I know people who literally will not film unless they have a perfectly clean image. It's just not going to happen. Just stop looking for it. You won't get it. It's not going to happen. Film with what you have. Also, white balance is incredibly important for color. White balance just being the color temperature of your lights. Do not mix your lights. I won't be able, I don't think I can lock the white balance on here, but basically the idea is if I just go, can I do that here? Ooh, there you go. Now I've gone a bit orange. Sometimes you see people go completely orange if the camera's like set wrong, although it's now going to quickly adjust because it's an automatic. Yeah, get your white balance right and your colors will follow. And now I'm just going to screw it all up. See if I can get it roughly the same again, whatever that'll do. Yeah, just stop chasing perfection because there's no such thing. Stop chasing it because you'll never get it. Like, ever. Ever. Mistakes will happen. Kit will fail. Sometimes the best thing you can do is develop your skills. Don't rely on the equipment, because if you get a shite camera, okay, let's go back to the camera pile, right? If you can't get the best out of this, a Canon 60D that shoots 1080p, I promise you, I promise you, you are not going to get the best out of the GH5. Will it look a bit sharper? Is that really is that what you consider quality? A slightly sharper image? There's other things you can do to make your image look better than just sharpness. There are times when there's maybe a little too much detail. That's entirely up to you. This is all subjective, but like, if you can't get the best out of this, you ain't going to get the best out of this. This will make your mistakes easier to spot than this. And I still think this is a very capable camera. This is like a 2009, 2010 dealio. I mean, there are still times when I can't get the best image out of this. Damn sure can't get the best image out of this all the time. Does this make it a bit easier to do certain things because of the way technology's improved? Yes. However, something like this has required me to learn how to light things properly, how to set up microphones properly, you know, how to set up like catch lights and stuff in the eyes, just other things that I can do to make an image aesthetically pleasing. Oh my God, you have battery in you. That's insane. You've not been using it in a while, as you can probably see from all of the dust. You know, I used to take part in this thing. There was a group called Handheld Hollywood back in the day, and the idea was that we would all take. I didn't have any actual part in Handheld Hollywood, the setup of it. I just kind of, you know, like to take part in little events and things that were put on, and we'd all get together, and not as a group, it's a website. People would get together and do the whole Handheld Hollywood style thing where you would take a low-end camera, phone camera, whatever, and you would shoot a film with the lowest end gear possible and just see what you could do to get the best results possible. You couldn't buy better gear. You were limited to what you had, whether that be an iPhone 3GS or you know, like a little point and shoot thing. You had to use what you had, and you became better at your craft by learning the limitations of your equipment and how to work around them. That is what will benefit you the most. Not worrying about f-stops, not worrying about image noise, not worrying about ISO and sensitivity and dynamic range, anything like that. This isn't all just about the camera or the microphone or whatever. You can buy a very, very, very expensive microphone and still be really crap at recording audio. It's all about learning placement, pickup, how to actually speak into a microphone. There are techniques for that. You can't just point it somewhere, crank the gain on it, the volume, simple, and speak. It doesn't, you know, there's bits where sometimes it gets more bassy, gets more tinny and more airy, like you pick up more room noise. There are ways to fix all of these things. There are techniques to get the best result out of this equipment. You can't just press a button and go. And so what I'm saying is, realistically, get what you have and learn. As I said, very, very, very disjointed video because I forgot absolutely everything I wanted to say before I sat down. We filmed things, recorded things, captured things, edited things, took photos and things long before we had the latest consumer tech. I didn't have it when I was growing up. You know, when you have a family or someone you know and they get something like mega expensive, that stuff never existed. You know, look at a lot of your childhood kit or your childhood films, sorry, and just go, well, what did they have? And then you realise that, like, even if it was filmed on big boy pro end gear, that big boy pro end gear probably equates to something you now carry around in your pocket. But for some reason, that thing that's in your pocket ain't good enough. If we kept on looking at our equipment saying it ain't good enough, nothing had ever been shot. Nothing would have been filmed. You know, there used to be a time when people used to take like glass or tin negatives. You know, your sensor would be like massive, huge, right? And you like, you know, I did the depth of field thing earlier. Like the big sensor, like the image, the negative would be this like tin plate or whatever. And it was so big that the focus area was so thin. They used to have to get like a stand with like just imagine, and you put your head on it and they'd say, right, stand there, put your head on it and lean against it. Now don't move. Because if you moved even a fraction, you were out of focus. And that stuff was expensive. Way, way, way back then, you know, big old box cameras with the little thing that you put over your head because this is long before I was born. But it was, people used to lug those around. You'd get a couple of plates that you could take pictures with, and now we can take millions of photos a day. And now it's just all throwaway. We're looking for things that don't matter. Rather than taking an image that we can cherish or recording something that we can cherish, even if it's super low res or whatever, we are holding back until we get that one thing to get the perfect shot. But then what if you miss the shot? Like if you don't have the gear and you miss it, it's gone forever. Wouldn't it have been better just to have captured that moment with what you had, recorded that idea, you know, sung that song? Because we can do this with everything: guitars, computers, microphones, cameras, you know, cars. I can't learn to drive like a race car driver until I get an F1 car or a Bugatti or a Lamborghini. It's like you can learn advanced driving techniques in any car. You know, I don't want to learn to cook until I get a fine set of chef's knives and a fantastic cooking station. There's just no point. You have to learn the basics. You don't need all the best gear to learn the basics. Technology will keep moving. You will never have the best. Having the best gear does not make you the best. I can still produce absolute dog shite with all of this equipment. Case in point. So please, learn a few bits. If you need any help, give me a shout. I'm not the best. I'm fine at telling you how to do it, but I'm too lazy to do it myself. For my own stuff. For the most part, I shouldn't have said that, but I've done it now. But yeah, this is actually good quality. I from what I can tell, I mean, this is sharper than a lot of other stuff that I've used in my life. It's sharper. The colors are pretty good. You know, focus is reasonably, well, I don't know. Can I tap that? Oh, there you go. Focus is reasonably quick-ish. I don't know. It's all right. If this is all you had, this would be great. If all you had was an iPhone 4, that was great. If all you had was a Nexus 1, that was great. If things don't come out how you want them to, there's probably a way that you can make it so without just changing the gear. Maybe just throw on some more lights. You know, if it's all in auto, you'll figure it out, because a master of the craft can make a shite camera or shite microphone just sing. But a novice will make good gear look crap. Get out there and practice. Please. And watch that film. It's actually pretty good. Side by side, Keanu Reeves. Because damn, people had to do a lot of work back in the day to get stuff on screen. And technology will always improve and potentially make all the older stuff look shite. If you look at anything that's done in you know, it's got CGI, computer generated fluff, the old stuff looks terrible. It hasn't aged well, but it was the best for the time. And now it looks amateur hour. Just go, come on, sort of. I'm gonna try and figure out how the hell to get this off of the iPhone and to do. I don't think I'm gonna bother editing it because of reasons. And maybe if the planets align, I can go and take my camera out tomorrow and chat more random fluff. But all in, I won't compare a camera to another camera, because if it's the only camera you got, it's all that matters. Just get out there and film something. Go out there and take some pictures. Go out there and make some music. If all you've got's a pair of crappy earbuds, just appreciate the sound you get. If you know, all you've got's an NES, appreciate the games you've got. If all you've got's a book, just appreciate that world that you can dive into. And if you haven't got anything, you haven't seen it yet. Hope you're on. I'll still with you with luck in the next one. Fuck me, man. More structure. Come on, figure it out.